So, hello everybody. Another week, another meeting, another load of horror stories, of course. But it was lovely to see Melanie. I saw Melanie on Tuesday morning because I'm sponsoring golf, the GCMA Team of the Year award. So I was there, and I walked out in my coffee, and I saw Mel, who was up for Manager of the Year. So, how did your interview go, Mel?
Yeah, I was going to say, let's not talk about it.
Oh, it's supposed to be a nice interview. It's not supposed to be interrogation. Was it okay? No, okay. Maybe ours were nice, but yeah, everybody else. Gosh. Yeah, it's interesting because I thought we were. I don't know why. I didn't realize it's going to be such a secret. It makes sense, but it really is like the Oscars that we're going to announce it on the night. I'm like, wow, that's a level of secrecy I'm not sure we need. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't think anybody knows who's in what categories for any of the awards.
No,
so I don't know who else is in the categories, and I do. I obviously now know who the shortlist is for the team.
Yeah,
but only because I saw the people. So
yes.
It's like, yeah, no idea. I think they do try and keep it under wraps. So
yeah, although it to get people to apply next time is to say, look, we're doing these awards, and these are the people who've been put forward, and here's a short. I think a bit more promotion, like they do with the Oscars. It's like, yeah, loads of people were nominated, but these are the ones that were actually in the shortlist.
Yeah,
Anyway, it's fine. Yes, could have done with more coffee on the morning. It was lovely talking to everybody, but the difficult thing from my side of the table was that everybody was all three teams were so good. I'm like, I can't choose between them. They're all good in different ways.
Shall I choose the one for you? I know who's top of my list on that, but you've already done it.
Really? Okay, which one?
Who I'd go for?
Team.
Was it your first? No, it wouldn't have been your first team actually, because I saw you after your first interview, didn't I?
Yeah.
I think it was your second team.
Second.
Someone in Surrey.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. No, it's because they're very different in the criterion, and Gareth wanted to use 59 club criteria, and I'm like, okay, I think I need a bit more training on this. So yes. So the other thing, actually, we were going to use 59 Club. So the 59 Club is involved with hospitality businesses worldwide, and actually does mystery shopping, but with data capture. So one of the clubs submitted their 59 Club evaluation. So they had mystery shopper, and in hospitality, I was like, how does this work? I mean, and they're like, okay, were you greeted within sort of 20 seconds of standing there? Did they have a smile on their face? Did they explain what the situation was? Did they take you to the table, and did you get a menu at the same time as sitting down, or did you have to wait 5 minutes for that? Did they have name badges? Actually, a lot of people don't have name badges on. I didn't realize this was a thing, but it obviously makes it easy to say my server is Carolyne. And all these things, and more for the business. Was there an upsell? So when they said, oh, I'll have the steak and kidney pie, to say, oh, actually the green beans and the carrots today are really good with that. They're really fresh and organic. Would you like a side order of those? Oh, yes, I would. So that's an extra £3 for the club. So it's all these type of things. You don't have to do them, but it's to make sure that there's a standard process in your hospitality roles, and that they know what they're supposed to be doing. They are supposed to be giving a good customer experience, but it's also supposed to be working for business. So there we go. Right, who on the team would like to tell about their horror stories from this week?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. Something that I've been having a few emails about, and just a word of caution to everyone. So this about pay is about paying employees properly when they're leaving the business. So I've had over the last few weeks a few emails from ACAS saying this employee is essentially unhappy because they're not being paid correctly when they left, and can you sort it, or they're going to go to a tribunal. So a few flags of the things I've seen, just to make sure everyone's aware. Notice pay will likely be stated in their contract, or should be stated in their contract. Please abide by this. Pay them what you think that they should be paid for notice, or if you've got another side agreement that's not written down or something, just abide by that. It's clearer There's no headaches there. With holiday pay, anything that they've accrued but unused should be paid to them. Again, that way it's clear, stated, if necessary, when you're sending them the letter. If you need to put the extra details in just to make sure it's clear, then do that. But I've had a club come back and say, actually, we thought he was only owed like £100 for holiday, but turns out it's like £300, and that's why the guy's kicking off. The big one that I'm seeing a lot is people who are paid per week, not actually being paid per week. So I had a club who had an employee who was being paid for 40 hours a week, meant to be paid per week. But instead, they were paying him 160 hours a month for 4 weeks in the month, right? Which you assume is right. But not every single month has 4 weeks in it. So over the course of his employment, he was underpaid by £2,000. They've had to then pay that. And that wasn't a nice thing for the manager to realize. When I was like, can you go back and just double check the math? He was like, oh, wait, this was actually a massive flaw. So making sure you do all that homework before paying him at the end, or paying the employee at the end, will save you a whole lot of hassle when ACAS come knocking on the door saying this employee is willing to go to a tribunal if this isn't settled. I know that there's been a few other examples, but those are the main ones I've seen so far. Making sure notice is paid properly, making sure outstanding holiday is calculated properly, and if someone's being paid per week, then actually paying them per week rather than assuming what the weeks are in the month.
Yes, and the other thing as well, which makes it a lot easier, legally you don't have to do this, is if on your pay slips you detail out holiday being paid as a separate line. You don't legally have to do this, but if you do, it is so much easier to have those conversations about how much holiday is owed, because you can actually prove that you have paid X number of days in that year. If it's in the salary, it is a much more tricky calculation, and we're not really up for that. Maybe your bookkeeper or payroll is, but actually, if you do it as a separate holiday line, then it's a lot easier for everybody. And I'm going to say you get a lot less challenges on it because everybody can see what holiday is paid. Okay, Nadia.
Oh, I don't have a horror case, but I want to talk to you guys about something that we've talked to you about a million times before, but I feel like you can never talk about this enough because it keeps coming up. And this is reasonable adjustments. I've been working with a client on a case where an employee has a long-standing history of mental health issues, and this employee is really trying to come back to work. However, the questions come up in terms of how long do we need to do a phased return? How long do we need to do reasonable adjustments? They stated, for example, that the manager doesn't really want the employee to do less than 20 hours a week, which, I understand from a practical point of view. However, this employee is struggling to do more than 1 day a week on his phased return that he's been on for 3 weeks. So I sort of had to bring out the big guns again and say, when first of all, if you don't make reasonable adjustments as an employer, that will be considered discrimination. Reasonable, an employer should treat the word reasonable in this case generously, in terms of, if you think, oh, that's not convenient, just think about it again and think if it's possible rather than if it's convenient. Because yes, it's not convenient to have someone work less than 20 hours when they're a full-time employee, but is it possible? Yeah, absolutely. It's possible for him to work 4 hours a week if he wants to. He's a greenkeeper. It's possible. Might not be convenient for the business because you need to hire another person to do the rest of the job, but it is possible. And that is what you should be thinking about. You should be thinking about what can be done, what this employee can do. And the question of how long for? Forever. It could be that you're doing a phased return and it takes a few weeks or it takes a few months, or more likely this employee is going to hit a point, maybe 2 days a week, where he can't really cope with more than that. and that becomes his permanent working pattern. And that would still be in the courts, that would be considered very reasonable, be considered first level reasonable, as in you didn't have to do very much with this one. That's how a judge would see it. And I just thought I'd quickly tell you the sort of reasonable adjustments that you need to be thinking of, and that is reasonable to make. Changes in the workplace. For example, if an employee has mobility issues and their office is upstairs, can you get them an office downstairs? That would be reasonable. Installing a lift, not reasonable. But moving their office downstairs or letting them work in the restaurant downstairs, that is reasonable. Yeah. Changing the working pattern, like I say, reducing the hours, changing start times and finish times, giving flexibility when someone might need to leave early or start a bit later if they're having a bad day. Those kind of things. That's first level expected. Finding different ways of doing things. This one often gets people, there might be a different way for an employee to perform a task. That might not be the way it's always been done, but that might be the way they need to do it in order to get it done because they have some sort of disability. Providing equipment and support. This is the other one that the employers often struggle with. The idea of maybe employing a buddy to work alongside that person. So no longer having a person working a shift on their own, but actually having someone working that shift with them. Or using equipment to allow someone to be able to be helped, getting something like Grammarly for someone who has dyslexia, that's really helpful and necessary. These kind of things is again, a judge would be like, you didn't have to do much. That's low level stuff. That's not big things. And then another one that people struggle with is an alternative role. Is there something else that an employee can do other than their normal job that is more suitable for them, or a role in which you can make adjustments for that person that maybe you can't make in their normal job? So yeah, reasonable adjustments. Don't just think, oh, that's a pain, that's inconvenient, that affects everyone else. Those things. Think, is it possible? Can we do it? Can we figure out a way to do it? What can this employee do? How can we help them stay in work in business? That's what it's about. Sorry for preaching. Oh, yes, thank goodness, a question.
Can I ask, I know it can, if they're full-time and they say end up doing 2 days a week and they're comfortable with 2 days a week, and it's a year down the line or 2 years down the line, is there a point where you can then enter into a conversation and adjust that contract when there is that realization by the employee that they no longer can or want to do full time, and then you can adjust it back to what is suitable for them? Does that have to be led by them, or can it be...
No, it's in this case, and this is one of the rare cases where it is actually a joint conversation that you are having. So if you've got someone on reduced hours or a phased return due to making reasonable adjustments, you should catch up with that person often, weekly, bi-weekly, chatting to them, seeing how they're going. If they're going up from 1 day to 2 days next week, talk to them at the end of this week and say, how's it going? You think you're okay to go up to 2 days? Talk to them a week after they've gone up to 2 days and say, how was it? Was it okay? Did you cope all right? That kind of thing. And then at some point, and probably before you're a year down the line, by the way, probably more in 4, 5, 6 months, you'll get to a point where the employee is like, okay, this is my comfortable, this is the sweet spot, this is the comfortable place. I struggle with more. You might have, maybe they've gone to more and they've had to come back a bit to this. And that's the point at which you say, you have that conversation about whether this is what they want to change their working pattern to permanently, but you're not asking them to change, you're not making them change, you're offering to say, you know, this seems to be the place where you're comfortable, you've been working this for a while now, it seems to be going okay, would you like, is this something you would like to do? We can do this for you if you want. That's the kind of language you want to be using. And if they say, no, I want to work full time, fine, then you keep trying. Although most people wouldn't try if they've tried and they can't get there.
Yeah, and they might end up being more comfortable making that commitment to less hours and putting themselves under more pressure and stress to try and achieve the 40 hours. But again, I guess it's a matter of time and the individual to make a decision on where they're most comfortable. Okay.
Yeah,
great.
but it's a ongoing dialogue. It's not a, you know, it's not a conversation that happens once every 3 months or something like that. Any other questions?
I think Catherine had stuff to say.
Yes. At the end of, I think it was last week's Zoom, or it's the week before, I don't know, the weeks just fly by. So David sort of dropped in this potential new legal change about holiday pay or holiday. And we were ready to run out the door screaming because we don't want it to be touched again, but it's okay. I've looked into it, it's okay. But I just want to recap, because I know this maybe caught a few of you off guard about holiday pay. No one should be at a financial detriment when they're on holiday. So there was a ruling many years ago now that if someone's doing sort of regular, consistent overtime, regularly receiving commission or bonuses, then you take the average of their pay when you pay their annual leave. So I guess key for you is just, if you have external payroll providers, just make sure they're aware of this and they're not just naturally putting their normal hourly rate. There are some calculations. But it does really only affect people that do it consistently and regularly. You know, one bonus a year is not going to change it. The odd hour or two overtime every couple of months is not going to change it. We're talking consistently. That's when it would change. The new ruling was about if staff tried to go to a tribunal and claim unlawful deduction of wages, they could only claim for the most recent deduction, or if there was more than one, they had to be less than 3 months apart. So holiday pay, for example, if you took holiday in January and you were paid wrong, and then you took holiday in August and were paid wrong, you can only claim for your August one. That's what the rule was. So the new ruling is now basically saying that they can go and back claim for all of the incorrect deductions, not this 3 month rule in between or this most recent. That's for holiday. In the UK, when we look at pay claims, we always say you can go back 2 years. They're actually looking at getting rid of that as well and making it indefinite, as in from when the wrongdoing was. So watch this space for that. So I think key for you, if you come up to a new holiday year, just make sure your payroll providers know to take into consideration commission, bonuses, and overtime. And I think overtime is going to be probably the likely one here. Yeah, perfect.
One of the areas specifically, golf clubs, to look at is if you have greenkeepers who work, 1 in 3 weekends, 1 in 4 weekends, and they get overtime for that weekend work. This is the kind of overtime we're talking about. Look into it, make sure you're including that, and you're not just giving them a day rate for their holiday pay.
Okay. Has anybody got any questions? Melanie Pointer usually has a question. Yes, Melanie, do you want to?
I do. So if you've got this sort of tradition where all your therapists have like a 37.5 hour contract, but actually your admins have 40, and you want to bring people in line and have everyone on 40 hours, is that a simple thing to do? Can you have some on one and some not on that? And given my current situation where I will end up having only one, because some of them are 0 hours, one contracted physio, and I'm taking on another one. But if I take the new one on at 40 and the current one is 37, can I make hers 40? How does it sort of work?
Oh, sorry, struggled to find the unmute button there. So a first question, so that would be, you would be asking someone to change their hours. Yeah, so it's going to be with their agreement, especially if they've got more than 2 years service. So it could be
They haven't.
okay. So if they haven't, you can ask them. We'd want some more details from you. You can ask them, and if they refuse, you could terminate the contract if you wanted to. But there's more to that. Speak to us about protected characteristics, etc. Over 2 years service, it is going to be a consultation. So we want to increase your hours. This is why. This is the proposal. Can it work for you? If they agree, then yes, you can update the contracts. What I would just check though is the breaks, because sometimes you might have a 37.5-hour contract excluding breaks, and that 40-hour contract might include them. So actually they're kind of working the same hours, it's the breaks changing it. So just check that. And then your penultimate question, yes, you can have people on different hours. So if you now need to recruit and you need them for 40 hours, then put the advert for 40 hours and do the contract for 40 hours. Yeah.
So it doesn't set a precedence, because I know you have this thing where you have to pay people equal amounts for equal jobs. I didn't know if you had to also give somebody with the same job the same hours in that, same full-time hours sort of thing. So that doesn't apply then.
So if you're talking to your staff they're on the 37.5 and asking them to increase, if they say no, they can't then complain you're hiring someone on 40 hours because they've declined that. It'd be completely different if someone had a protected characteristic and you didn't up their hours, but you brought someone in on new hours. That's where the risk is there. But if you're given the option to up their hours and they say no, then that's on them, really.
Okay. And if you decrease a 0 hours person's hours because they are often off sick and unreliable, is that a problem? Or you just, because they're 0 hours, you can just think, because otherwise you're giving them the hours that you could give to somebody else that's more reliable. Is that sort of reasonable? So
you're not going to be decreasing hours because they don't have hours. So they should be your stand-in for sickness or cover or annual leave. If you suddenly want to not offer them as many hours, technically yes, but it depends why. So I think when you had a pregnant 0 hours, for example, that would be a big no. The sickness, it kind of depends what it's about. If they've got a long-term health condition and they tell you, then you're suddenly not offering the shift.
They haven't. A lot of this is their kids are off sick and then they won't come in. So like again, this week I've lost 2 full days of clinics that I can't replace. I'm losing a lot of money as a result of them not having childcare when their kids are sick.
Yeah. So there's two prongs to this. So you can offer 0 hours a shift and they don't have to accept it. Yeah. So that you can't do anything about that. If you offer them a shift, they accept it and then they go sick, you would be treating that as if they went on 0 hours. They've still gone sick from that shift or the childcare. So you can be doing, your return to work, your conversations, your sickness levels. You can be managing that. So yes, if you have real issues on their reliability, you can offer them less shifts. But then what I'd be saying to you is they're going to still be sat on your books accruing all this full-time annual leave. So actually, you might want to do something more drastic than that. Again, we'd look at if they have 2 years service, or or you don't need 0 hours anymore. You need a part-time person. You're restructuring. I wouldn't just have them sat on your books accruing all this annual leave and not offering them shifts. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Tony, do you have any questions?
Just obviously, I've been speaking to Catherine with reference to short time working, and redundancies, etc. Just looking at the process at the moment, consultation with elements of the club. So yeah, I'll be following your advice on that, Catherine. Particularly awkward for me because I've got 3 individuals with protected characteristics within those groups. So it does make it a little bit difficult, but obviously, as you've recommended, we invite the whole group to attend and consult and just see the way forward, really.
What I would say with the restructuring process that we use, which is different to sort of corporate life, is because everybody's put at risk of redundancy and they can choose to apply for the new roles. It does mean that if they don't apply because they think I'll have the tax-free money, the likelihood of a claim, despite there being protected characteristics, is relatively low, as opposed to if you've done the traditional point system and they just happen to be the ones who are identified for redundancy. That's when you definitely will get a claim. So the process has worked really well for the golf clubs over the past 3 years to make sure there haven't been any claims with restructuring, because we've got the ability to structure it so that the correct people stay. Let's say that. Yeah. But yeah, we'd work with you at each stage to make sure you were getting the result that the business.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Right, well, I'm off this afternoon to give a talk at the GCMA 1 week course. So I'm going back up to where I was on Tuesday morning. So I should have structured my week a little bit better. Never mind. And so we've got 2 hours to talk about all the things in staffing in golf clubs. I really feel I should have 2 days of this course, not just 2 hours. But anyway, we'll work on that. And I'm sure we'll have some more horror stories for next week. So I hope you all have a really good weekend. And we'll see you next Thursday. Take care. Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you want a free tribunal audit of your employment contract and handbook, click the link in the description below.